morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Thursday, the 13th of March, 2025. For centuries, Scotland has fought for its right to be a nation, to control its own future. Generations have passed down the belief that one day Scotland will stand as an independent country, free from Westminster rule. But belief is not enough. Hope alone will not deliver independence. The truth is, independence will only come if we take it, if we stop waiting for permission, if we stop hoping that Westminster will one day grant us what we know is already ours. Scotland's freedom has never been something that could be negotiated. It has to be secured by us through our own actions, through our own will, and through a strategy that makes it undeniable. There is a way. There has always been a way, but it cannot be done in fragments, in disjointed efforts, in isolated struggles that never quite align. It must be won by the nation as a whole, working in unison, pulling in the same direction. The movement must be strategic, coordinated, and relentless. There are three pillars upon which independence must be built: a political pillar, an international pillar, and a grassroots pillar. The rest of this video is dedicated to explaining each of these, and how, if they overlap into one another, they strengthen our cause. Also, if they are secured together, nothing can stop Scotland from reclaiming her sovereignty. Now, I've talked about these pillars in other videos, explained what they are, but never explained how I believe they are a symbiosis of the movement and how they could lead to our liberty. And of course, without shoring up these pillars, how we may just fail in our cause. So let's start. The first pillar is the political pillar, where Scotland must prove to itself that it is a nation that governs itself competently, even under the suffocating weight of devolution. That it governs itself positively under the constant barrage of negative unionist media and Scotland bad propaganda. And even governs itself when independent supporters cry out in anger and disbelief in them. It also has to recognise that it is a tool and a mechanism that must be used to express our right of self-determination, regardless of UK legislation. Holyrood is the democratic voice of Scotland. It is the foundation of our future state. Presently, though, it's limited by the glass ceiling of devolution. It is on an extendable leash controlled by Westminster. And so, no matter how hard a pro-Scottish Holyrood tries, it will always be restricted in how far it can go. But is that not why we're fighting for independence? Westminster has spent years diminishing its legitimacy, ensuring that the Scottish self-governance is seen as a privilege rather than a right. But Holyrood exists because the people of Scotland demanded it. We overwhelmingly voted it into existence in the late 1990s, and this cannot be ignored. But consider this, it was not all SNP voters that voted Holyrood into existence. It was a people wanting self-governance and decisions to be made in Scotland by Scots for Scots. Therefore, we can assume not everyone that wants independence is an SNP supporter or party member. And it is with that premise that I have to put forward to you that the 2026 election must be the most strategically fought in Scotland's history. We cannot afford to send the parties of the Union into Holyrood. Unionist parties will never place Scotland and her people at the top of the agenda. So with that in mind, we must ensure that both government and opposition are pro-Scottish, with MSPs who answer to Scotland and not Westminster. Your first vote must go to the SNP. We need the biggest party fielding the government benches, even in a minority. The second vote must go to another pro-independence party. Why is this so very important? First of all, it demonstrates a willingness of the Scottish people to replicate its decision for self-governance like when we voted for devolution. It demonstrates that we do not consent to the Union, and furthermore, it shows the politicians that we will most definitely use them as a tool of our right to self-determination, rather than them believing that they lead the charge, when the truth is we lead the charge, and they are just a cog in the machine of self-determination. It also means that if it's the SNP that again forms the government, that they are supported and held to account by more pro-Scottish MSPs in opposition compared to those pantomime puppets that represent Westminster interests and not Scotland's. We must elect a Holyrood that has over 2/3 pro-Scottish MSPs to enable the legal mechanisms within the Scotland Act for when the time comes. More about that later in the video. The election is not about personal political loyalties. It's not about policy. It's not about past grievances or divisions within the movement. It's about ensuring that when the world looks to Scotland, it sees a nation that has voted decisively for its own future. And a Holyrood filled with pro-Scottish MSPs says this loud and clear. And furthermore, this demonstration to the world then backs up the second pillar, the one that I call the international pillar. Westminster will never accept Holyrood as a legitimate route to self-determination, no matter how overwhelming the pro-independence majority may be. That is why the international pillar is utterly vital. The world must recognise Scotland's democratic choice, and to do that, there must be an irrefutable case presented on the global stage. Liberation Scot and Salvo are taking that case to the United Nations through an NGO, asking the fundamental question: is Scotland in a voluntary union, or has it been annexed? If it's a voluntary union, then what is the legal pathway to leave? If there's not a legal pathway that Scotland can choose without the permission of Westminster, then Scotland has been annexed, which means it must be treated as a colony under international law. International legitimacy is essential because Westminster will never grant Scotland a recognised path to independence. But when the case is made before the world, the legal and political argument must be solid, and this is where the political and international pillars overlap and complement one another. A pro-Scottish Holyrood strengthens that case. It proves that Scotland's people have chosen the government that best suits its needs, that it has chosen a different path from Westminster. But the UN will ask for more. They will ask for proof that the people of Scotland, beyond political structures, have expressed their will to leave the Union. Within the international pillar is Mike Fenwick's Declaration of a Sovereign Scot. This truly overlaps into the third pillar, which is the most important element, and that is you, the people, the dedicated activists within the grassroots movement. The grassroots movement is the third pillar and the linchpin of this entire strategy. It is not the job of politicians to deliver independence, it is the duty of the people. If the grassroots do not organise, do not unite, do not take their role seriously, then independence will never happen. And that is the cold truth. The political pillar needs the grassroots to turn out and vote strategically in 2026 to ensure a pro-Scottish Holyrood. The international pillar needs the grassroots to provide the mass public support for independence so they can demonstrate to the international community that Scotland wants something different. And that is why every independent supporter must sign the Declaration of a Sovereign Scot. This is an individual, non-political declaration that states the signatory does not consent to the Union and does not accept Westminster's authority over Scotland's governance. It is a clear personal expression of self-determination, and it will be lodged within the United Nations itself. No government can argue against the democratic will of its people when it is recorded in overwhelming numbers. If Scotland is to prove to the world that it wants independence, this declaration must be signed by every single person who believes in that cause. This is not a political campaign, it is a national cause. It is Scotland herself standing up and saying, we are sovereign and we will not be ruled by Westminster any longer. However, our grassroots movement suffers from disengagement, apathy, and distrust of their fellow activists. Some question the SNP as legitimate independence activists, that they're now a party of the establishment and the status quo. Some believe that the smaller parties split the independence vote and campaign actively against them. We spend more time arguing amongst ourselves rather than focusing on the real battle. If the people of Scotland behaved this way during the wars of independence, even with great and inspiring leaders like Wallace and Bruce, Longshanks and England would have won. It is our own lack of unity that prevents us moving forward. And this is why we truly need to get over ourselves. And as much as we may hate the flag of the SNP or of Alapa or of Green, the flag that we can all agree on that we truly despise the most is the butcher's apron. And we must rally to that hatred and embrace our brothers and sisters, even if they do not walk the same political path. That path can be debated and argued upon when we cut that extendable leash and smash that glass ceiling of devolution. You need to focus, and you need to bury the personalities of ego and allow independence to be the personality that guides us. The three pillars do not stand alone. They overlap, they reinforce each other. A strong pro-Scottish government must be delivered by the grassroots. International recognition must be built on the foundation of a Holyrood that has chosen independence. And a united grassroots movement must provide the public proof that self-determination is the will of the nation and not just a political ambition. So how does this get us closer or even deliver independence? First of all, we need to elect 2/3 of the parliamentary seats in Holyrood as pro-Scottish MSPs. So that's either 86 or 87 pro-Scottish MSPs to be sure out of the 129. It is possible, and I've explained how to do this in other videos, and I will explain again in future videos. 2/3 majority allows Holyrood itself to vote for an extraordinary general election to dissolve Holyrood. In the Scotland Act 1998, Section 3, Subsection 1, it states, for an extraordinary general election to be held, where the Parliament resolves that it should be dissolved, if the resolution is passed on division, it requires 2/3 of the total membership of Parliament to vote in favour. Why would we do this? Why would we dissolve Holyrood for a general election? Please stay with me and I'll explain. If we obtain international recognition through the means of Liberation Scot and Mike Fenwick's Declaration of a Sovereign Scot, and if we elect a Holyrood that demonstrates clearly that independence is the political will of the Scottish people, and if we have a united in purpose and cause grassroots movement, then we can happily approach Westminster and state that we want to begin negotiations for our independence. What do you think they're going to say? Back in your box jog. We don't recognise any of this. So we then recall all of our politicians, MPs and MSPs, all of our international representatives and all of the leaders of the grassroots organisations across Scotland, and we agree that we should dissolve Holyrood under the democratic right of self-determination and put the independence question to the Scottish people in the form of an extraordinary general election. The SNP should only field constituency candidates, and the rest of the independence parties should only field list candidates. We then deliver again a 2/3 pro-Scottish majority, and when that happens, and when we have international recognition, Westminster will still deny us. So we declare independence with all three pillars in place, and by the will of the Scottish people and the recognition of the international community, who will see that we have exhausted every legal means we can to express our self-determination, we will win. This is how independence is won, by utilising and energising the movement that exists already, by awakening that energy and putting our differences aside until after we are free. Not through waiting, not through asking or begging for a referendum, but through an unshakable, coordinated effort to take our independence. This is the way. This has always been the way. There is no other path. There is no permission to be granted. There is only the will of the Scottish people ready to be expressed, ready to be made real. If we fail to work together, if we let division, party loyalty, or personal grievances get in the way, then we will be responsible for the broken dream we leave behind. If we do not unite now, we will be the reason independence does not happen in our lifetime. But if we do this, if we come together, if we make our voices heard and our actions count, then Scotland will be free. Not by the grace of Westminster, not by a referendum we are not allowed to hold, but because as a nation, we chose it. So I ask you all, are you ready to stand up and make that choice? Probably the longest video that I've ever made, so I'm sorry that I rambled on, but there was a lot to get through. But tomorrow I'm going to simplify this because I have a PowerPoint presentation that I can go through on the live stream and talk about this in detail and answer any questions and take any criticisms if necessary. It boils down to being united, it boils down to working together. It basically means that we need to go back to 2014 and remember that energy that took us forward. We need to trust in the political element. We do, regardless of how you feel about policy or anything to do with the SNP or ALPA or the Greens. They are tools to be used. The same as Liberation Scot, Salvo, the same as Mike Fenwick's Declaration of a Sovereign Scot. They are tools to be used together to build the House of Independence. Not one of them alone will deliver independence, because at the end of the day, every one of these initiatives, political, international, the Declaration of a Sovereign Scot, these are all things that need to be ratified by the will of you guys, the people. And if you seriously think that Westminster is the best way forward for Scotland, if you think that they have our best interests at heart, just look over the past 15 years, or even just since the 2014 referendum, and find me just one incredibly positive thing that the Union has done for Scotland. Demonstrate that positive case for Scotland to remain in the Union that is not based in historical rhetoric or sound bites that you've picked up from the BBC or the Daily Mail. Ferries won't cut it. Blue tents won't cut it. Placing all your criticism against the SNP won't cut it. You're talking about the will of a people, the changing dynamics of the Constitution. You're thinking that you can suppress us. You can't. As long as 100 of us still breathe, you will never, ever take away our freedom.
They draw the lines, they call the shots. Take what's ours and leave us not. But we see through their tired game. Scotland's rising won't be tamed. Scotland is ready. Scotland is ready for independence. No more waiting, no more chains. We'll stand together, break the reins. Scotland is ready. Scotland is ready for independence, for independence. They say we're small, they say we're weak, but listen close. When Scotland Scotland speaks, our wealth is strong, our hearts are true. We know exactly what to do. Scotland is ready. Scotland is ready for independence. No more waiting, no more change. We'll stand together, break the race. Scotland is ready. Scotland is ready for independence, for independence. No more lies, no more lies, no more fear, no more fear. Our time is now, our day is here. The future's ours. Let's take the call. We rise as one. We rise for all. We build the wind, we sail the seas, we feed the world, we plant the trees. Scotland's future, bold and bright. Time to stand and claim our right. Scotland is ready. Scotland is ready for independence, for independence. They say we're small, they say we're weak, but listen close. When Scotland speaks, our wealth is strong, our hearts are true.